On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Locked On Blues podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and your number one source for daily Blues content. I'm Josh Hyman.
And I'm Thomas Welch.
And we got a great episode for you today. A little bit of a fast-paced episode as the Blues are going to be starting their matchup against the Washington Capitals in literally 30 minutes. So when you're listening to this episode, the game will probably have already happened. But we're gonna do our best shot at talking about what the Blues need to do to win, the impact of Vladimir Tarasenko, Scott Perunovich, Jake Wallman going with COVID protocol, and we're also gonna be talking about their loss to the Pittsburgh Penguins. So we hope you guys enjoy. It should be a fun episode for you guys today. But first, before we get into that, I want to thank everybody for making Locked On Blues your first listen every day. We are free and available on all podcast platforms. All right, Tommy. Without further ado, before we get into the game that is going to be happening literally as soon as we finish this recording, the Blues unfortunately lost their most recent game to the Pittsburgh Penguins, only the second time all season that they had been fully healthy, and something that both of those games have had in common, the Blues lost. Decent first period, Jordan Binnington stood on his head. Really strong second period, went up 3-1. Third period, they poked the bear. Nico Mikkola got into it with Sidney Crosby, and Sidney Crosby said, I took that personally, and came away and got a goal and an assist. Controversial goal, but maybe we'll get into that. Blues lost 5-3. Like you said before the podcast, they were on an 8-game win streak, now on a 9-game win streak. Not the worst loss in the world, obviously, given the circumstances. You would have liked them to come away, but what did you see in that game? What did you like? What did you hate? Final thoughts. Give them to me.
Yeah, so I'm not upset about the loss. I know a lot of people, obviously, anytime you blow a lead like that, you're not going to feel great about it, but it is the Pittsburgh Penguins, who are one of the top organizations in the league for the last 10 years, or even longer than that. They're, like you said, we're riding an 8-game win streak on a 9-game win streak now. Probably one of, if not the hottest teams in the NHL. And they're a playoff team. Like, they're going to be in the playoffs this season. So when you take off the emotions of losing that 3-1 lead and look at the perspective of, hey, this team is very talented, and any team in the NHL is going to come at you for a full 60 minutes. When the Pittsburgh Penguins do it, it's an absolute onslaught led by Sidney Crosby. So, like I said, I'm not too upset about this game, but I think there's some things of note here, and one that is the Blues didn't play a full 60. And I don't even want to say the Blues didn't play a full 60 because I feel like, I don't know, it's a group effort, right? And I think Craig Berube talked about it after the game. The forechecking wasn't there. They weren't banging bodies. There wasn't a ton of hits. And the defense, I feel like, was basically just trying to tread water. And we saw that in the first period. Jordan Binnington absolutely stood on his head and looked like Stanley Cup Game 7 Jordan Binnington with some of the saves that he was making. So if you're mad at Jordan Binnington for this game and the outcome of this game, I don't know what game you're watching, but the dude could not have done any more with the defense that was in front of him. So going back to a trending topic that we've had this entire season, it seems like the defense still continues to be a problem for the St. Louis Blues. That explains why Doug Armstrong is looking at guys like Jacob Chychrun and other defensemen around the league. And it sounds like John Klingberg is requesting a trade from the Dallas Stars as well. I don't think the Dallas Stars will trade within the division, but You never know for a rental. Doug's definitely going to kick the tires on guys like that. So that's something to look forward to. And I don't know if the Blues go with a rental route here or if they go for a big name like Jacob Chychrun and that contract. I'm sure Doug Armstrong is licking his chops there. But as far as the Pittsburgh Penguins game goes, there's definitely been some worse losses in the St. Louis Blues. I'm just happy that they didn't lose to the Arizona Coyotes. So when you put it in that perspective, I think hanging 5-3 score against the Pittsburgh Penguins on an 8-game win streak, you could have played better, and you would love to go out there and get a victory, but all things considered, it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, Absolutely. I think that's kind of like a good way to sum it up. Obviously frustrating. Like I was talking to you before the podcast. Put my phone down for, half an hour, picked it back up. Blues were down 5-3. I wasn't able to watch the game, but anytime that you kind of have the game turn on you that quickly, it can be frustrating, from sort of an outsider's perspective, but looking into the more, more of like looking at it more closely, it's not as concerning as it might initially seem. Obviously, habits from early in the season kind of rearing their ugly head with the defense struggling, and the whole hot debate is, oh, are the Blues worse when they're fully healthy? First of all, get out of here with that. No, they're not. No. The answer to that question is no. Everyone loves to point that out and say like, oh yeah, the AHL guys are better grinders and blah, blah, blah. That's why they were winning. And you could argue that for sure, but I don't think there's a case out there to be made that the Blues are worse when they're fully healthy. Because again, first of all, that game against Pittsburgh was the second out of, I don't know, 38 games. I'm completely guessing. Something around there, 35-ish.
35, I think.
We're almost at the halfway point, and the Blues have had 2 games with a fully healthy roster. So, first of all, that tells you all you need to know for the season in general. But the other element of that is, it's hard to build chemistry and build, a rapport with your line mates when every single game your lines are shifting back and forth. You're playing with different guys one way or another. And sure, we saw habits pop up that are concerning, like the defense struggling, but there were also a lot of positives in that game. Jordan Binnington proved once again why he could be, the starting caliber goalie for this team. We were having debates a couple weeks ago of, oh, should Charlie Lindgren be the starter long term? And now conveniently, Jordan Binnington has quietly snuck his way into reaffirming those beliefs that he is the starter for the St. Louis Blues. And we're not really talking about it that much. And that's sort of the unfortunate thing that Binnington has to deal with, where like the expectations on him are so high that like anything less than stellar, he's going to have the spotlight shined on him. And I'm pretty sure Jeremy Rutherford tweeted out something like during the second period, or it might have been Korak. One of the guys I have notifications for tweeted out, I bet if Binnington gives up another goal, I better not hear something about him giving up more than 3 goals, because there is a statistic that like Binnington gives up 3+ goals a lot, whatever. The fact of the matter is, 35 games in the season, the defense has played significantly better in front of Ville Husso and Charlie Lindgren than they have in front of Jordan Binnington. That is an undeniable fact. We saw it with Brian Elliott and Jake Allen way back when, and we're seeing it now. For whatever reason, defense takes it a little lackadaisically when they got their starter in net. Obviously, that's something that has been sort of worked out. We saw that was probably the number one problem in the year that they won the cup. And all of a sudden, Jordan Binnington comes up and, they won the cup. So it's not a problem that's unsolvable, but it's definitely something that is a little concerning and probably frustrating if you're Jordan Binnington. That being said, the Blues are having another significant test here in about 20 minutes against the Washington Capitals. So in the second segment, we're going to start to talk about that. Talk about the absences of Vladimir Tarasenko, Scott Perunovich, and Jake Wallman, all recently added to COVID protocol because the Blues can't have nice things. And more, like I said, in the second segment. But first, I'm going to take a quick break, so don't go anywhere. All right, Tommy. So like we were talking about before the break, the Blues have had two whole games where they've been fully healthy this year. Last game against Pittsburgh was one of them. We were all like, yes, this lineup is fully healthy. We get to see them at max capacity. It was great. And it was great. For 2 periods, they looked really strong. And then third period, it tapered off a little bit. But whatever. We're like, oh, sweet. Another game against Washington where we'll be able to watch this fully healthy lineup again. Nope. One of our best goal scorers in Vladimir Tarasenko having an absolute resurgent season. Rookie defenseman Scott Perunovich, who probably had his best game of the year against Pittsburgh, all things considered, and Jake Wallman, an absolutely perfect glue guy for the St. Louis Blues, who's played a bit of forward, defense. He's been all over the place this season and has been really strong for them. All 3 of those guys added to COVID protocol. What are we going to miss from those 3 heading into tonight's game against the Capitals and moving down the line?
Well, I mean, from Vladimir Tarasenko, you're gonna miss a lot. But I think it's almost not. It's not a blessing in disguise. But you're looking at it through rose-colored lenses, right? As difficult as that is with your best player going down on the COVID protocol list, here's an opportunity for the St. Louis Blues to see what their team looks like in games without him, right? And as much as everyone, and I'm on the same train, doesn't want to see Vladimir Tarasenko gets traded. I would love for him to play out the rest of his career here. I would love for him to play out the rest of his contract here. There's a very real possibility that he's still not happy here and he still wants to go, right? I mean, we really have no idea what's going on in the mind of Vladimir Tarasenko right now. So to get an idea of what this team looks like and how much they're dependent on his season currently and his success and that insurgence that you're talking about, the argument could absolutely be made that Vladimir Tarasenko has put the St. Louis Blues on his back this season. I mean, the dude, 34 points in 34 games. I mean, that speaks dividends to the type of season that he's having. But then you can also make the argument that the Blues have 3 first lines and they are easily one of, if not the deepest teams in the NHL. So they don't really need that kind of production from a guy like Tarasenko. Or the argument could be made that you could slot in a lot of guys in this Blues lineup and they'd be still as successful as Tarasenko has been. So whatever side of the aisle on you're there, you have to be 50-50 on one of them, right? And so I think this stretch of games without Tarasenko will kind of give us some answers to, will help you realize like, okay, maybe we don't need him if we go on like a winning streak and like someone else is picking up in the points production, or if we lose the next 5 games or the next 4 games, however long he's out, probably be 5 games, but it could very well be 10. Who knows? You could be like, okay, maybe we need Vladimir Tarasenko and maybe we shouldn't trade him at all. So I think it's going to give a lot of clarity to Blues fans. I think it'll give a lot of clarity to the players. And I think it's definitely going to give some clarity to Craig Berube and Doug Armstrong. So we'll see how it goes.
It's also going to be interesting when he returns because, as we know over the last 10 years, however long he's been with the Blues, he is an extremely streaky player. And we've seen a lot of that this season. Started out the season absolutely on fire, went cold for like 10 games, and then the last few games he's been on fire once again. So it's going to be a big test for him as well, coming back from something like COVID, which not even to mention the potential lingering effects of that. We've talked enough about that over the past 2 years. Just being out of the lineup for that long, that Russian line is getting broken up. Multiple things that are sort of stacked against Vladimir Tarasenko in terms of returning to his success this season. And I honestly don't think there's a whole lot of pressure on him when it comes to performing as well as he has. If he comes back and he, finishes the year at about 60-ish point pace rather than the point per game pace that he was on now, I don't think that any of us would look at that and say, be disappointed in that. I think that's what we sort of expected this season from him. And so far up to this point, I think we can all agree that Vladimir Tarasenko has exceeded expectations, which is not what I expected, given the report that came out just a few months ago about him demanding a trade. So it's going to be really interesting to see not only how the Blues perform without him, but also, him coming back, because that there's something in his mind. At some point, he's gonna have the exact same thought that we just talked about, whereas he says, man, I requested a trade. This is what my team is going to be like had that trade happen. That's somewhere in his mind. At some point throughout this process, that thought is going to cross his mind. So it's going to be interesting to see, when he comes back, if he's able to just sort of jump right back into it and play like he's been playing the last week or so, or will it be more of him trying to get back up to full speed? Because I'm assuming he's not going to be playing with Buchnevich and Barbashev when he comes back. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. But it's definitely going to be a big test for him this season, and it's going to be interesting to see, like I said, not only when they're playing without him, a sort of look into the future of the Blues without Tarasenko, but him coming back is also going to be a glimpse into what if he does want to stick around? What if he does want to play out his contract, or, even better, what if he wants to play out his contract and he's changed his mind so much that he'll sign another one? So definitely a big moment for him this season. We also talked about Perunovic and Wallman. Perunovic is a guy that I think had his best game of the season against Pittsburgh, close to it. Jake Wallman, another really, really crucial. So all three of those guys are definitely going to be missed in the Blues lineup. That being said, though, they do have a tough matchup against the Washington Capitals coming up, and we're getting into that in the third segment today. But before we talk about that, I do want to tell you guys about our good friends over at BetOnline.ag. BetOnline would like to wish you a happy new betting year as we continue our march to the playoffs and beyond. BetOnline remains the number one spot for all the best sports wagering action for 2022. I still can't believe it's 2022. I'm going to be writing the date wrong for months. New year and a new updated desktop and mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to get started. From football, basketball, hockey, boxing, and UFC, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for 2022. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts, and we'll be right back with the third segment. All right, Tommy. So, big matchup in like literally 20 minutes between the St. Louis Blues and Washington Capitals, and a little bit bigger of a matchup for me because my lovely girlfriend is still in town, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, she decided to be a Washington Capitals fan. So, a little bit of extra personal beef on the table tonight. But Tommy, what do you think it'll take for the Blues to come away with a win and hopefully leave Emily disappointed with a Capitals loss?
Well, I also just want to know if you guys are going to raise the stakes and throw some money down on Bet Online, see which team comes out victorious. That might be a play.
Have to.
That might be a play, but
breakfast is on the losing team.
Yeah, there you go.
Tomorrow morning.
Exactly. But I don't know how I feel about this game for the Blues. One, because like we just talked about, Vladimir Tarasenko is out. Two, Ville Husso is in net, but honestly, he's had a good season so far. Can't complain about that at all, but I mean, it's just not Jordan Binnington. So it's going to be interesting to see. And the Blues lines came out today, so I'll read them off for you guys. First line, wing, Ivan Barbashev. So if you've been listening to the pod, we've been singing his praises all season long, talking about him being a pillar of consistency. The guy's been like top 3 in points on the season. Already not blew it out of the water, but already blew past his career high in points with 26. He has 27 on the season currently, last time I checked. So I feel like this was a long time coming for Barbashev. It's a great promotion for a guy who absolutely deserves it and is the fabric of the St. Louis Blues. Like if you think of a St. Louis Blues player, think of a two-way, grind it out, but also be skilled offensively and be able to put it in the back of the net, be able to find guys with the passes. Ivan Barbashev encapsulates all of that. So Ryan O'Reilly is centering him with Buchnevich on the other side. Braden Shen, who I don't know if you guys remember who that is, but he came back from the injury and immediately scored a goal and got an assist. So he led the Blues in points against the Pittsburgh Penguins. So he moves up from the third line to the second line with Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou. So that's going to be a fun line to watch, kind of inserting himself into that line. In the space of Vladimir Tarasenko, he's going to take his spot. Brandon Saad, Sundqvist, and Perron are on the third line. Logan Brown, Tyler Bozak, and Klim Kostin on the fourth line. So even though we've got some key players out, the lines still sound good, honestly. Like they don't sound like we're missing like 3 key players.
I will just interject and say it's still so weird to hear Brandon Saad among the names of Blues players. Feels like we've been rooting against him since the beginning of time.
Unlike every team he's been on,
literally,
Chicago and Colorado.
Literally, he's been a killer. No, but I think you kind of summed it up perfectly. As much as it's disappointing that the Blues are missing the names that they are missing tonight, it's an opportunity. You know, the flip side of that is you got a guy like Ivan Barbashev who has, probably been a top 3 most valuable player, top 5 most valuable player for the Blues this season. And we talk about, surpassing expectations. There's no better example of a guy that has blown my expectations out of the water than Ivan Barbashev. He's still so young, which is easy to forget because he's been up with the Blues since he was like 21, 22, And it really felt like coming into like last season and even this season, he had established his role as sort of a grinding third, fourth line player. And like we were fine with that because he was really good at it. And all of a sudden he's like, hey, you know that whole thing called scoring goals and getting assists? I can do that too. And he comes in and just puts up almost a point per game consistently for half a season now. It has been amazing watching him succeed and thrive. I've always rooted for Barbie. It's I think he gave me a puck one time at a Blues game, so he's always been, one of my favorite players just deep down.
Hall of Famer.
Exactly. No, but that I think speaks volumes to what has given the Blues success this season. Another thing you didn't touch on, or you might have touched on, and I just zoned it out. Ville Husso starting in goal for the Blues tonight. Another guy that again surpassed expectations. Perfect example of that as well. A guy that we knew was going to be a backup goalie, but had struggled last season, comes in this season and makes an argument that he could be sort of a 1B type of player. So as much as these injuries and these COVID absences are frustrating, I'm so excited to watch Ivan Barbashev play on the first line tonight. And I'm so excited, even though it doesn't have anything to do with COVID, I'm so excited to watch Ville Husso start in goal tonight. And a little bit of a spoiler alert for, a few minutes from now, he's going to be my pick for lockdown player of the game. And I'll go into that a little bit more why later. But yeah, it's a bit of a blessing in disguise. Having a guy like Tarasenko go down, Barbashev on the first line, that's great. Having a guy like Perunovic go down is a little frustrating, and Wallman go down is a little frustrating because I think they've been two of the more consistent players on our defense. But again, you look at a few weeks ago when Jordan Binnington and Justin Falk went down and the defense had their backs up against the wall and, basically looked up and said, hey, you guys have been the weakest link this season, and your all-star caliber goaltender and your best defenseman just went down. Put up or shut up. And they stood tall. They played some of their best hockey, they played their best hockey of the season with an absolutely depleted roster. So once again, here you go. 2 defensemen out with COVID. You got another big test against a guy like Alex Ovechkin. Gonna break Gretzky's record in a few years here. Best goal scorer of all time. What a better opportunity, or you couldn't name a better opportunity for the defense to really have to go out there and play their game. And like I said, the whole Ville Husso locked on player of the game comes with a extension of, I think the defense is going to play well in front of him too. But that being said, Tommy, before I give my explanation, I will turn the question to you. Who is your pick for tonight's locked on player of the game and why? PQA format, 500 words minimum. You will be graded on grammar and spelling.
A couple points here. Going off of your locked on player of the game, Ville Husso. If you're like me and as excited as you are for every St. Louis Blues game, and as excited you are for every game going forward and the push for the playoffs, I get almost just excited about the idea of trades because Doug Armstrong always seems to come out on top of it. So if you're thinking about trades and all those speculations are swirling in your head and you're thinking like, oh, who could we get? Like, who would we have to give up? I think the success of Ville Husso absolutely determines whether or not Doug Armstrong is willing to dangle out Joel Hofer, dangle out Colton Ellis as kind of maybe a forbidden fruit, maybe not a forbidden fruit, and be like, hey, I know there's a lot of terrible teams out there that don't know how to draft goalies and really need goalies. Arizona Coyotes, I'm looking at you. So maybe he dangles them out there as a piece and says, hey, we have 2 stocked goalies who have shown flashes at the lower levels, and Ville Husso looks like he's an adequate backup in the league, could potentially be a starter one day with the right kind of development, takes the right steps in his process. So we don't need these guys. Maybe send them over your way. So I think that would be an exciting concept to see. Like if the Blues have 2 goalie prospects that they don't need, it's a surplus. And if you don't have to lose a guy like Kostin or Neighbors or Perunovic or anybody like that, you might still have to, but I think those guys being a centerpiece for a deal would be huge for this team and not losing forward or defenseman depth. That being said, locked on player of the game. As I said earlier, Braden Shen came back from an injury and led the team in points. He is one of the leaders on this team. One of the leaders on this team just went down in Vladimir Tarasenko. That means some of the other leaders are going to have to step up. Robert Bertuzzo plays that role as well. He's one of the oldest veterans on this team. He's a voice in the locker room. I think he's going to have a big day, and putting him back in the lineup is going to help the morale of this team. But when it's all said and done, we talked about Ivan Barbashev being a bona fide St. Louis Blue. I think Braden Shen is absolutely the same archetype. He can beat you with scoring. He can beat you with playmaking. He can beat you to a pulp. And I think he's going to have a fantastic game against the Washington Capitals. So he's my locked on player of the game.
I like that. I mentioned it earlier. Ville Husso was my pick for locked on player of the game, and it's a little bit of a cheating answer, as I'm going to go into. I know a few weeks ago I jokingly gave my pick for locked on player of the game as the whole team, but it's sort of a similar answer now. And my pick is Ville Husso. I'm sticking by that. I think he's been a guy that has, like I said, exceeded expectations this season. I think, he's really proven himself as a 1B type of goaltender if the Blues wanted to go that route, which I don't think they will or should. But again, he can't deny that he's been extremely solid in the opportunities that he has. But the other thing is, I think you cannot deny the fact that what got this defense on track this season was playing in front of Ville Husso and Charlie Lindgren. They've always, defense of this team has always played better in front of their backups. But besides the Pittsburgh game, we saw that continue over in front of Jordan Binnington. We saw it sort of have a ripple effect. So my reasoning for picking Ville Husso as locked-on player of the game isn't just for tonight. I think it's going to be a really good opportunity for the defense that has, sort of took 2 steps back, or maybe 1 step back last game, to take two more steps forward this game. Because as bad as the defense was last game against Pittsburgh, they have still taken gigantic steps from where they were at the beginning of the season. Obviously, they regressed a little bit in that game. But like I said, it's easy to sort of settle in. It's easy, having a guy like Jordan Binnington back there. It's easy to not, put as much pressure on yourself if you're the Blues defense. Now with a guy like Ville Husso in net, hasn't played in a while, has been with an injury for a while. Defense knows they got a little bit of extra pressure. Missing Perunovic, missing Wallman, even. So not only do I think that Ville Husso is going to have a really solid game tonight and, play really well as he has all season and hopefully do a good job of containing Alex Ovechkin, I think it's going to have a ripple effect, and his solid performance is going to provide the defense with the confidence and, strength that they need to have for the second half of the season, playing well in front of both Ville Husso and Jordan Binnington, because finally we're getting back into a normal goaltending rotation where they play in front of Binnington one game, Husso the next. That's going to happen consistently for the rest of the season, knock on wood. So it gives the defense a good opportunity to settle back into the routine. And yeah, they were playing really well, but they were playing really well with a depleted roster and in front of Charlie Lindgren. They didn't really get the opportunity to strut their stuff with a fully healthy roster before last night against the Pittsburgh Penguins, who Sidney Crosby did his thing. So much you can really do about that. So not only do I think Ville Husso is going to be the lockdown player of the game, but I think this is going to sort of tip the first domino for the rest of the season in terms of getting this defense and this team back on track.
I think, too, that it's probably equally as impressive if you can stifle Ovi and the Washington Capitals and the offensive prowess that they've shown all season long, as it would have been if we could have stifled the Pittsburgh Penguins. So as much as, like you said, it's a step backwards last game for the defense, and they know they have to be better. And I think the offense knows they have to forecheck better and grind it out a little bit more against those playoff teams. But they have an opportunity here tonight in a very short amount of time to capitalize on that and kind of reinsert themselves and regroup and be like, okay, we know that we can hang with these guys. We know what we have to do. We know what we failed to do in last game. Let's go out and take care of business tonight. And that's what I expect them to do.
Yes, sir. I'm really excited. But that being said, it is 2 minutes from 8 o'clock. So I think we got to wrap things up here. I want to thank everybody so much for listening or watching on YouTube. If you are subscribed on YouTube, the episodes most times go live, sometimes even a full day before they go live on podcasts. A little bit less edited, a little bit less polished, but a little bit more fun that way. You get to see our faces, you get to see our reactions, all that stuff. You get to see me try to point at my Twitter username, which I still haven't figured out. So yeah, make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Like I said, episodes come out early. If you want to watch this game before, or if you wanted to listen to this episode before the Caps game starts, the only way you can do that is on YouTube because they go live pretty much right after we record them. But that being said, you're still listening to us in your car, in your headphones, whatever. We're still live on all podcast platforms, so make sure you hit that follow or subscribe button on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. Leave a review if you're feeling so kind. They got reviews now on Spotify, so hit us with a review there as well as Apple Podcast. Make sure you follow us on all of our various social medias, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok at Locked On Blues. All right, here we go. Here comes the point. Make sure you follow me on Twitter. There you go. At Josh Hyman NHL. Follow
Ready?
Tommy on Twitter. Oh, there you go. At TWelcher15. Follow us on Twitter at Locked On Blues. As always, thanks so much for listening, and let's go Blues.